before the citizens, this is a report that I prepared as my final report as city manager. If you go through it, it just talks about the fact that Carter Consulting came in October of 2009. I developed a 62-point plan, which was adopted by the commission as a recommended approach for the city's recovery. You'll see a copy of that 62-point plan in your packet. The important thing I want to note about this is that of the 62, James, I'll just close it then. James Sims, if he comes back. Of that 62-point plan, 56 of the 62 points have either been completed or are in progress of being completed. Therefore, what that means is that 90% of what I recommended back in late 2009 has been used or is being used by the emergency financial manager, and so it's a bit of a vindication that what was once described as not being a plan, 90% of it is now benefits package. I just want to make one comment about the Whirlpool Foundation Community Benefits Package. I sat in on the meetings, I sat in on negotiations. At the end of the day, there was a 14-year commitment totaling $3.8 million made from Whirlpool. The EFM was not a part of those discussions. I just want to make that clear, say it now, because I've read in other articles, this was a decision and a negotiation that was led by the elected leaders of this city, and the final agreement of a $3.8 million grant goes to the credit of the elected leaders of this city, period. Not me, not the EFL, not some outside third party. 100% of the proposed legislation that I brought forward was passed in the year that I've been city manager. I don't know that any city manager can say that. So I'm very proud of the fact that every piece of legislation that I proposed for this city did get passed and is now being implemented. The city master plan was completed. You're going to hear a lot more about the Park Improvement Day. We formed a collaboration with Home Depot, Kaboom, Game Time, and the city, and we have a plan to improve every park in the city this coming summer. I don't think I'll be here to see it happen, but I surely hope that you guys will support this effort. Of course, the PGA Senior Tour 2012 and 2014 are coming. The Harbor Shores grand opening was a rousing success, and of course the approval of the Whirlpool office complex. The next matrix is critically important, and I hope everyone take 2 seconds to take a look at this. When I came here back in December, I made the statement that you cannot cut your way out of the deficit. That it was going to take a combination of cuts in operating costs and new revenues. What this matrix tells you is that the 1 year that I have been the city manager, we have brought in, and we have proposed to bring in $39 million. It's a city with an $8 million budget, and we were approved. We sold property on Grand Boulevard. We were approved for the Fisherman's Park grant of $350,000. We got a $14.5 million bond. We got a $13.9 million NSP2 grant. We got a $13.8 Whirlpool Foundation grant. We made $57,000 at the beach. We brought in $133,000 for the kids for Safe Summer. And you can read the rest of it here, the collections from Benton Township. We talked about bringing in new revenue. This document, if you add in the 2 grants that are pending, when some people propose to cut the fire department or eliminate police services, we wrote grants. We asked the federal government for an additional $2.5 million. We're waiting now for an answer from FEMA. If FEMA approves this $2.5 million grant, there will be no reason to shut the fire department. So you can't always cut your way out. You got to bring in more money. And this says in the last year, we've approached $39 million in new income for the city. I'm providing this information, folks, because I've learned in all of my government jobs that if you don't tell your story, somebody else will. So once I leave, there are going to be a lot of things said about me. But if they differ than what you see on this paper, then take it with a grain of salt. If somebody says there's something on this paper that's not true, you got a week to come to me and disprove what's on this paper. It's been an amazing year. There's been a lot of good things to talk about. $36 million in new income is a good thing. 435 kids getting summer jobs is a good thing. A HUD Section 3 certification program, resident-owned business certification program, Safe Summers, Safe Harbor, a lot of good things. You're at a critical juncture now. I don't want to throw stones at either side. I just want to say that we have got to come together now, or this thing can go south very fast. I have not seen a budget. I have not seen a list of monthly payables in 9 months. I have not seen a cash flow statement that tells us what we have spent. I have not seen an operating statement comparing the cash flow to the actual expenditures. None of this has occurred since April 1st. If you were to try and run a public corporation, Whirlpool, AT&T, Pizza Hut, if you were to try to run any of those companies, and you did not provide financials for 9 months, you would be under federal investigation. You have to provide statements every 90 days in a public company. For this city to go 9 months without financials is very suspect. And I expect the elected officials to hold the EFM accountable. I expect the EFM to be transparent and open. And I'm telling you that those financial reports are critical to the future of this city. And if you don't get them within days, then you need to take an aggressive action to find out where your money is going. If you have a balanced budget, why is it not on the website? I will answer any questions at this time.
Or any vacancy in a permanent position filled by the appointing authority. A description of any position that has been eliminated or from which an employee has been laid off. This report required under this section shall be submitted every 6 months, beginning 6 months after the starting date, which is April 1st. Have you seen any of this?
No, sir, I have not.
Should it be on the website?
It is the law. Well, yes, it should. But it should have been posted to the city website effective October 1st. It is the law.
And lastly, so the Whirlpool, or I won't say Whirlpool, but the big township for $675,000, were you a part of any of those discussions?
I did participate in 2 meetings with Benton Township regarding outstanding delinquencies of the township and the transfer of the operations over to the township. I did not participate in any meetings and or negotiations about the sale of city assets. Commissioner, let me just make a point, and this is for all commissioners. I'm not a lawyer, and I think the questions that are being raised today are valid. And I think that the answers will come from a judge, not from a departing city manager. The charter is clear. It takes a 2/3 vote of the commission. And assuming the EFM has the power of the mayor of the commission under Public Act 72, he can make that decision. However, I believe, and this is again just my opinion, at that point, he has to act within the charter, and that the city manager, the mayor, the city attorney, and the city clerk have to execute any contracts for services or the sale or disposition of assets for them to become binding and legal. And we have not done that. And so I think that a judge will have to make this decision as to whether these agreements are binding and legal. Let me also add, this question comes up again in hiring and firing. According to the charter, the city manager is the personnel director. The personnel director must sign all R100s to effectuate a hire, a new hire, a layoff, a termination, or a raise. And I have not signed, no, I've signed 2 R100s since April. And there's probably been about 50 actions taken. So I don't know if those actions are binding and legal. Again, it's a personnel question that has to be determined by a judge. I just don't know if any of that's legal.
I yield the floor.
Thank you, City Manager Ron Carter. I would also say that we've had a unique relationship, but I can say you stuck to it, and what you did for the city, the citizens, is commendable as far as the robo. And I would just like to ask you this question, and I'm going to move because I'm going to yield the floor to other commissioners. I just got a couple. The Hair Palladium received a statement from Joe Harris because if the budget is balanced, he's no longer an emergency. That he moved the mayor out of his office to be close to you. How many times have you seen, as city manager since April, Joe Harris utilize that office?
Not many. Very few.
So, does he utilize that office? Is that an office that we can say is the EFM's office?
I think it would be difficult to say that.
Thank you. Also, when the EFM stated that we were broke and we could not afford a city manager, is it true that he has now hired 11 full-time employees and 25 part-time employees at the wage of $13 an hour? For the part-timers, not the full-timers.
I'm not exactly sure about the number of new hires or the number of part-time hires. The numbers you've quoted of 11 full-time and 25 part-time are very close, as best I can tell. I haven't seen a list of all the new hires, layoffs, raises, but from my knowledge, there's been close to 40 people hired since I was told we couldn't afford a city manager.
How much are our part-time shovelers making?
It's $13 an hour.
$13 an hour. Is it true that the EFM stated that he could not afford a city manager in the newspaper and later gave 2 employees raises of about $25,000 to do the same work that you're doing and they're less qualified than you? Which will be totaling probably about about 140, not combining the benefits.
Some of that I can accurately answer.
Or about 120, I'm sorry, it was somewhere.
Some of that I can accurately answer. Yes, Mr. Harris did say that the city could not afford a city manager. Yes, he did hire 2 EFM assistants. And yes, their combined salary is $25,000 more than what he pays the city manager to do the same job. That I can tell you.
Wow.